Good evening everybody, welcome to the Planning Committee of the 24th of June. Before we start, if I could just go through a few procedural matters. As you'll see, I'm using a PA system, so hopefully, can you all hear me okay at the back?
Yes.
Yep, good, thanks. Please ensure your mobile phones are switched off or to switch to silent. There's no fire drill planned, so if the alarms go off, just follow me. As you would have noticed, the proceedings, as with all planning committee meetings, are filmed and they will be available on the WBC website. You'll see from the camera position that committee members and the council officers and registered speakers are recorded, but if you specifically don't want what you have to say to be recorded, we can ask that that is stopped. The planning committee is made up of 9 elected members, borough councillors, and we have 8 of those present tonight. 1 is on leave. We're supported by a variety of professional council officers. On my far right is Mary Severin, who's the borough solicitor, who's here to give us legal advice. Next to her is Tricia Harcourt, who's the senior democratic services officer, who's here as clerk to tonight's meeting. Next to me, on my immediate right, is Councillor Bob Pitts, who's acting as vice chairman tonight in the absence of the normal vice chairman. I'm Simon Weeks, I chair the committee. On my left is Claire Lawrence, who's head of development management, and next to her is Chris Easton, who's the service manager for highway matters, to advise us on the highway or transport matters. And the rest of the members of the committee are sitting on the left and right. The planning officers who are presenting tonight's applications are sat over at the side of the room. The procedure, just so that you're clear, this is a quasi-judicial committee with formal set procedures and conduct. Firstly, the planning officer will present each application. I will then call in turn only those who pre-registered to speak. Please come forward to the table in front of us here, and if you press the grey button on the little black unit, the microphone comes on, the red light comes on, and we can all hear what you have to say. There's a time limit of 3 minutes. Please stick to that and ensure that you get your key points across. Members of the committee, I would stress, are interested in the quality of what you have to say rather than necessarily the quantity. And I must stress that only those that are pre-registered to speak will speak tonight. Following the planning officer's presentation, the comments of the various registered speakers, the planning committee members will consider, question and seek clarification on the applications and hopefully reach decisions which may or may not agree with the planning officer's recommendation. Finally, a reminder that as the local planning authority, our role is to determine any valid planning applications against local and national planning policy. Our role is not to suggest improvements to applications, alterations to schemes, to comment on whether they're a good idea or whether they represent value for money. Our scheme is simply to determine them against planning policy. So without any further ado, we'll move straight on. Apologies, I think we just have Tim Holton.
Yes, Chairman.
All other members are present. Members of the previous meeting will recall that there was no meeting in May, so the last meeting was at the end of April. Do members have any issues they wish to raise, or can I sign those as a true record? I see no one indicating that they should sign those. And are there any applications to be deferred or withdrawn? Yeah, I'll come to that.
Yes, Chairman. Item number 9, which is application for 48 Ratley Close, is withdrawn from the agenda, and the application the listing on the application has been withdrawn, and it's been approved in delegated powers.
Thank you for that. Declarations of interest. Any members got any potential conflicts? Bob?
Yeah, it's non-prejudicial, but my ex-wife lives in Popringy Way, which is close to the Highfield Park, and also I used to work for Rockwell back in the distant past.
Okay. All right. Thank you for that, Bob. Before we get on to the main agenda, I'd like to recognise Councillor Lindsay Ferris, who served on this committee for a number of years and who stepped down in May, and thank him for his service and contributions. And in his place we welcome Councillor Wayne Smith, sitting over there. This is his first planning committee, so I promise to be gentle. Right, we'll move straight on. The first application is that at Highfield Park in Eversley Road, Arborfield Cross. Members attended a site visit here last Friday morning to familiarise themselves with the site, although it was not the first time that most members have been to the site. Tonight's this item has been presented by Jenny Seaman. Jenny, over to you.
Just as a reminder, this is a site plan to show the Highfield Park and surrounding area. The application consists of 6 existing pitches at Highfield Park, and the proposal is to subdivide those to provide an additional 7, so 13 in total. And this, sorry it's a bit faint, but this shows the layout of the pitches with the mobile homes and room for tourers, parking and utility rooms. Your attention's drawn to the members' update sheet. The points of clarification are just so that members have a bit of additional information, because the most recent GTAA was just approved and adopted in March of this year. So it's just really to set out the figures that are needed for the next time periods. So that's 52 up to 2029. And 21 between the period 2014 to 2019. And there have been some small changes to conditions 3 and 4. And number 7, and just a reminder that the paragraph at the end, there's no seal requirement at all on this application, and so the reference to the amenity building should just be ignored. So it's just any questions that anyone may have.
Okay. Well, we have nobody registered to speak on this one, and we have no board members here to speak on this, so throw it open to the committee. Just to try and summarise a couple of the points that, as you know, this site currently does have permission for a number of units. That was granted on appeal. It is not currently restricted as to who could use the site, so it's not restricted to gypsies and travellers. If this planning application is approved, it will involve an enlargement, an increase in the number of units on the site, but it will be within the existing boundaries, so its impact on the countryside and surrounding properties will be unchanged in that sense. One thing that will come out is, if this is approved tonight, is that the site will be, the condition will be restricted to gypsies and travellers. So, members, anybody wishing to speak on this? Chris.
Thank you, Simon. I think just one thing I noticed going through the text, it does talk about two nearby residential properties. I think what came clear from the site visit was that in fact there's a line of trees there, so I don't think really there's a question of intrusion in that area. I didn't see that as a reason to reject. Thank you.
Any other members wishing to speak on this one? I see. So just to clarify, this is allowing an increase in the number of units on the site within the boundaries of the site, and at the same time it is introducing a restriction that the site could only be used by gypsies and travellers from other parties. A couple of conditions have been altered to restrict burning on the site, because there's been issues apparently prehistorically of materials being burnt on the site, and it also clarifies the position that although one static mobile home and one touring caravan is allowed on each pitch, that only one of them can be occupied at any one time.
Chairman, just to clarify that this is recommended for approval subject to a section 106 referring to the sound mitigation.
Jenny, just a question for you. Since there was quite a couple of quite serious fires in the last few weeks affecting caravan sites, can we confirm that the plan detailing the position of the caravans is fully compliant in terms of distances to ensure that it will be okay for appropriate caravan site licensing in terms of fire regulations? Can we just confirm that?
Yes, before the application was actually submitted, we did meet with the applicant, and we did advise him of the sort of distances that they need to have to ensure no danger from fires.
Right, well I see, no, sorry, John.
Just further from that, is there access for fire engines and ambulances? Is that acceptable?
I think there was a comment from the fire authority that they required a new fire hydrant, and I think that was one of the conditions that was applied. Yeah, Royal Berks said no available public means request the suitable private fire hydrant provided. So I see no other members indicating they wish to speak. So members, you have a clear recommendation in front of you for planning application F 2014-2032. Could you please indicate you're prepared to support the recommendation to approve? That's approved unanimously. We now move on to the second application, which is on page 31. Jenny, this will be yourself as well, and we do have somebody registered to speak on this one.
Right, the planning application in this case is one that has already been presented to committee and was approved subject to a 106 agreement. Unfortunately, we weren't able to complete that Section 106 agreement. But basically, the application here is to provide, there's one pitch at the moment, and it's to provide 8 permanent pitches and 3 transit pitches. So the reason for the application coming before you tonight is still for recommendation for approval, but with a change that the Section 106 is for the SPA mitigation and for management arrangements for the transit pitches. And that's just a drawing that shows the layout plan. This application, the pitches are already, all the caravans and tours are already on site, and therefore the recommendation, which you'll see on the members' update sheet, is for condition 1 to be removed, because quite clearly that's a prior to development commencing application condition, so that's no longer relevant. Changes to conditions 3 and 4 and 9 and number 17. Also, just for members' information, the reason why there was some dispute between the council and the applicants on the 106 before was not to do with the permanent pitches, but to do with the transit pitches. We've had further information from the agent that the caravans on site are 2-bedroom, which is the reason why we're now reducing amounts for the SPA mitigation, and it's agreed that the transit pitches don't need a contribution. So that's what's in the members' update sheet, and again it's a recommendation for approval subject to that 106 for the SPA mitigation and the management arrangements for the transit pitches.
Okay, thank you. Just before we go on to the speakers, just clarify a couple of things. So, in essence, this planning application is the planning application that we considered back in 2012, and that as a result of the Section 106 agreement not being signed, it's never actually been approved. So, we're being asked to look again at something that is largely unchanged over the last 3 years.
It's unchanged, it's just that the adoption of SIL has changed the circumstances.
Yep. Okay. And so I noticed on this application there's 7 letters of objection. Those are the objections that were raised in 2012. Okay. Right, let's get some speakers. We've got Nat Green, agent for the applicant. Good evening. Hello. It's the grey button.
Yes, great button.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
It was working, but I don't
That's anyone else there?
Can you hear me?
I think it's actually speaking. I think it's the light is.
Oh, the light's gone. Okay, fine. Right, okay. Good evening. I'm Nathaniel Green from Green Planning Studio, and I'm here today to speak in support of our client, Mr. Doherty. This application is recommended for approval subject to conditions, and as stated by your officer, this matter has previously been granted permission subject to signing the Section 106 agreement. A year ago, however, in the intervening time, the rules governing the designation of contributions payable have changed, and therefore it was deemed necessary to come back before this committee to agree to the different terms of the agreement. My client, Mr. Doherty, as at the previous appearance before this committee, has no problem in principle with the sound and sound contributions required. However, we disagree with the imposition of contributions upon the transit pitches, as they are the equivalent of a hotel or camping site, which do not attract sound or sound contributions to their rooms or pitches. We therefore would request the Council removes the transit pitches from this calculation, and indeed, as your officer's update has shown, there's been a new calculation. Your officer's report accepts that the LPA still needs to identify a 5-year land supply of specific deliverable site. It states that the 2015 GTAA shows that an extra 21 Gypsy pitches will be required by 2019, at the very least. Even with other applications, the pipeline, which is a matter of law, cannot be taken into account. There remains a shortfall. As your officer's report admits, more pitches will be required to 2019. Therefore, as there is no 5-year land supply, according to paragraph 49 of the MPPF, there is a presumption in favour of the application, and as a result, paragraph 14 comes into effect. This creates a higher hurdle against refusal. Approving this application will help the Council to meet its obligations in this regard, and accords with Policy H of the Planning Policy for Traveller Sites, as well as Wokingham's policies CP2 and TB10. The site is laid out according to national design guidelines on good practice. The application's impact upon the character of the area should not be considered detrimental, as it is surrounded by Gypsy sites, an industrial estate and a breaker's yard. Indeed, it is considered to be in keeping with the existing land uses. The site is not visible from Eversley Road. Additional landscaping has been proposed to mitigate any impact to views from the public footpath. The site is considered sustainable, as it is within easy reach of transport links to services. As far as statutory consultees are concerned, the Highways Authority has not objected to the application. There have been no objections from Environmental Health. The Council's countryside officer is satisfied that a nearby Great Crested Newt survey at Walker's Yard is sufficient to cover this site as well, and that there is no mitigation is required at this point. As far as archaeological issues are concerned, Mr. Doherty is happy to comply with the revised Condition 17 regarding an archaeological survey and undertake any conservation work if necessary. Mr. Doherty has been made aware of the recommended conditions and is happy to comply with them. May I therefore invite members to follow those officers' report recommendations and approve this application. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Very good time. Right, we don't again have a local ward members wishing to speak on this. Could you please indicate? I see no one wishing to speak. John.
I will be supporting the application. I will be supporting the application. But is there a breakage yard still there? There was a breakage yard there? Okay. And I would disagree with the 5-year land supply comment you've made, because in the last appeal I believe we were told we had access. But I support the application.
No point in arguing that then if you agree anyway. All right, okay. So look, so I think that the reason that both officers and members are members are prepared to support, as they've certainly not indicated what they've said so far, is that this is an expansion, not an expansion, it's an intensification of the use of an existing site. So it's not expanding further into the countryside, and I think for that reason members are aware of the fact that it does help address the required numbers. We know that the Woking Borough is a very popular area for gypsies and travellers, probably because of the available work in the area. So any other members wishing to speak on this, or I'm going to put this straight to the vote. So all those members wishing to support the recommendation on application F 2012-0276, could they please indicate their support? And that is unanimously approved. Now move on. If there are people who were here for either of those first two applications, now would be a good opportunity to leave to avoid disrupting future applications. Okay. Thanks. Right, we now move on to application which is a variation VAR 2014-2499, which relates to plot 700 Wolfdale Road, Winnish. This is a previously approved site, and the matters for consideration tonight purely relate to the hours of operation of the site, because we have a proposal to vary those hours. And go straight across to you, Laura.
Thank you, Chair. This planning application relates to plot 700 Wolfdale Road on Winnish Triangle Business Park. The business park is one of our core employment areas. It is worth noting that other sites adjacent to the residential area around the periphery of the park are not subject to any planning restrictions in terms of noise levels, hours of operation or delivery. The site used to be home to the Parcel Force Depot, which operated as an authorised B8 storage and distribution use. The use was unrestricted. A building is nearing completion on site. Outline consent was granted in 2007, which set the development parameters for the redevelopment of the business park. We approved a reserve matters application for this particular site last year. The building will comprise up to 3,000 square metres of office floor space, with approximately 5,500 square metres to be used for light industrial purposes, with ancillary storage and distribution. The application being considered at the moment seeks to vary Condition 12 of the Reserve Matters Consent. Condition 12 prevents deliveries taking place between the hours of 8 in the evening and 7 in the morning. The application being considered this evening seeks to remove this condition to allow delivery vehicles to service the site 24 hours a day. The recommendation is to approve the variation, replacing Condition 12 with a new condition that would ensure deliveries adhere to a code of conduct set out in the delivery management plan. The application has attracted 18 letters of objection and a petition signed by 71 individuals. The application was listed because members felt it was in the public interest for this item to be heard by the committee and decided publicly. The residents' objections all relate to concern regarding the potential for 24-hour deliveries to cause a harmful level of noise and disturbance. The following slide, with figures taken from the acoustic report, indicates the relationship with the approved building and the nearest residential properties. The site is separated from the residential area by abundant landscaping and approved acoustic fence, beyond which is Winnish Meadow, which abuts the residential area. The photograph shows a view of the building taken from the meadow. This plan shows the approved layout of the site and the relevant elevational drawing. There are only 2 delivery bays in the south elevation and limited turning space for HGVs. The applicant suggests that the building was designed to be serviced by vans or cars rather than HGVs. It is also important to note that the approved use of the unit is light industrial with ancillary storage and distribution. This is reflective of the fact that the distribution element is ancillary and not the main part of Rockwell Collins' business, who intends to be the feature occupier. The key policy in determining this application is MDD Local Plan Policy TB20, which relates to service arrangements and deliveries for employment and retail uses. To take the relevant section of this policy, it states that planning permission will only be granted for commercial developments that demonstrate there is no harmful impact to the amenity of adjoining land users in terms of noise, fumes and disturbance. This is the test against which this application should be assessed. The current application has been supported by an acoustic report, which has been examined by the Environmental Health Officer. The Environmental Health Officer is satisfied with the assessment and recommendations contained within the report. The authority requires that the assessment of on-site vehicle noise is carried out using the guidance given in BS 8223 and that the good standard for resting conditions is achieved. The acoustic report has been modelled around a worst-case scenario of no more than one HGV movement in any 5-minute period. The future occupier of the building has, however, advised that their current operation at Sutton's Business Park rarely receives out-of-hours deliveries. This normally happens on a twice-monthly basis and generally occurs no later than midnight. It is envisaged that Plot 700 will operate in a similar manner. Considering the measured background levels and predicted noise levels associated with HGV and forklift truck movement and activities, the acoustic report found that provided a closed-boarded timber fence is installed, as secured by Condition 7 of the Reserve Matters Consent, the operation of plant and vehicles on the site should not cause noise levels inside residential properties to exceed the BS8 233 good standard for resting conditions in living rooms and bedrooms. Maximum noise levels produced by potential HGVs using the site will subsequently not exceed the guideline values given in BS8 233 or the World Health Organization guidelines on community noise. The amenity of neighbouring residential occupiers will therefore be protected. The acoustic report submitted in support of this application has demonstrated that the proposed 24-hour operation of the site for deliveries will not be harmful to the amenities of neighbouring residential occupiers. The Environmental Health Officer is satisfied with the assessment and conclusions set out in the acoustic report. In acknowledgement of the concerns of neighbours, a delivery management plan has been secured that contains a package of measures to further ensure that the occupiers of neighbouring residential properties are not disturbed by activities on the site. The delivery management plan includes measures such as prohibiting the use of reversing alarms during nighttime hours, ensuring that the delivery bays are open prior to the arrival of vehicles to avoid vehicles idling, and a general code of conduct for drivers visiting the site. We therefore recommend that this application is approved and a substitute condition is applied to the Reserve Matters Consent to ensure that the delivery management plan is adhered to. With the use of the recommended substitute condition, the proposal is considered to adhere to all relevant planning policy and guidance. Thank you.
Thank you, Laura. Right, we have people registered to speak on this, so could I firstly call Richard Bungay, representing local residents. Good evening.
I'll keep to my 3 minutes.
That's right. I'll give you a nudge if you have any questions.
So, my name is Richard Bungay. I live at 8 Williamson Close in Woolwich, which is 31 metres. The rear of my house is 31 metres from the boundary of the site 700. As you'll be aware, I think that Robert Moxon of Daniels and Associates Chartered Surveyors submitted a number of representations on behalf of 71 residents. Since that time, there's been very little information back to us from the developers. The view of the residents is the proposed noise mitigation is ineffective, and there's 3 main aspects to that. Number 1, and I'll go through these in detail, the acoustic fence is in the wrong position. Number 2, the acoustic fence has been inadequately specified. And number 3, the delivery management plan is insufficient. So I'll take those 3 in turn. For the position of the acoustic fence, a new 2.4 metre high metal well mesh fence has been erected on the boundary of the site. The planned 2.4 metre high close-boarded fence is immediately next to that. From my children's bedroom windows at the rear of the house, I can see the loading bay. I cannot see the fence, which means that the barrier is not between the sound source and my house. This in fact was highlighted in a photo I attached to my objection. Unfortunately I don't have the benefit of the screen, but it's clearly showing the location here, the loading bay.
Line of sight.
Yes, line of sight. So the acoustic fence doesn't break the line of sight, therefore will not actually affect the noise in my house. So our request is the plan should be resubmitted with the fence in fact in the correct place, which will be between the line of sight for the house and number 8 and number 9 Williamson Close. Number 2, specification of the fence. The residents, I think, are unsatisfied that around the condition of white noise alarms. The environmental report looked only at either broadband or white noise alarms. Obviously, tone reversing alarms have a much higher sound level. The calculations as well that were in that report were based on an average over 5 minutes. rather than the 10 seconds, when which is the typical average time for these vehicles reversing. So clearly the actual noise level at the time they're reversing is going to be significantly higher. There's no specification for the fence. It just talks about a close-boarded fence. It doesn't talk about whether that has to be of a certain quality, and I believe the standard is normally to have a UCAS accredited, laboratory accredited fence in it. So the residents requested that plans resubmitted with an adequate specification from a fence for the fence based on the assessment of the sound levels.
Just less than half a minute.
Third point is the delivery management plan, insufficient, very brief, missing key requirements. We expect to see reference to signage on the site rather than relying on the inspection of the security guard. And I think the final point is that the application was originally talked about no deliveries between 8 PM and 7 AM. That seems to have changed to 11 PM. Now, with the teenage son about to start GCSEs, I think that should be reverted to 8 PM.
Okay.
I assume that's a free then.
Thank you very much. And could I ask Robert Meekins, agent, and Graham Cook, the applicant? You're going to do a double act?
Yes.
Is that right?
Yes.
We'll just grab another chair so you can see that. Just a word of caution with double acts. It's up to you to share your 3 minutes. If the first person uses 3 minutes, it's only one of you speaking.
Understand. Thank you. Thank you for permitting me to address you this evening. My name is Robin Meekins, and I'm the planning consultant acting for the owners of the Winner's Triangle and the occupiers of Unit 700. Graham Crook from Rockwell Collins will also address you in support of the application. We have read the officer's update. We have the following to say. First, a point of clarification: the acoustic fence has not yet actually been erected. It will be before the site is occupied. That's why the residents can't see it at the moment. Secondly, our fence is the accredited specification in accordance with what the speaker has said for me. Third, we contend that the original imposition of a restriction on hours of servicing failed the tests for acceptable planning conditions contained in government guidance. Therefore, our application for the complete deletion of condition 12 without further imposition of new conditions should be approved. Our rationale is as follows. The reason why restrictions were placed on the original permission was to protect residential amenity. In this instance, the only topic impacting residential amenity is noise disturbance from vehicles. Noise impact is a technical issue. For the applicant, a qualified noise expert has produced a report confirming unrestricted servicing will not impact on the residential amenity of residents if the already approved boundary fence treatment is implemented. Your own EHO and other qualified noise experts has confirmed the legitimacy of the submission and agrees with the conclusions. The only basis on which to go against the technical advice and the advice of your officers in the original committee report would be if other credible and contradictory technical advice has been received explicitly about the specific proposal. No such contrary advice exists, therefore there is no reasonable basis upon which to go against the technical expert's evidence, as agreed by your own technical expert, your EHO. We are willing to accept a condition as proposed by the original committee report requiring the implementation of the delivery management plan as drafted. Having read the officer's latest update to committee, which now identifies 2 further possible conditions, we make the following points. The government's national planning guidance confirms explicitly that planning conditions cannot be used to personalise a planning permission to an individual company. Conditioning the Patrizia briefing note and part of the normal appendix fails most of the government's 6 tests for planning conditions is not precise, enforceable or necessary. We have written today to your planning officer setting out our detailed analysis and I understand that you've received copies of that. We therefore do not support the inclusion of the conditions set out in the officer's update report.
Good evening. My name is Graham Crook. I'm the Business Support Manager at Rockwell Collins. And as the eventual occupier of the building, we're mindful of the concerns of the residents. And I can provide the following information to hopefully allay those fears. We're looking forward to relocating to Winner's Triangle as a successful high technology company already based in the area with a very high number of highly skilled staff drawn from the surrounding area. In moving to Winner's Triangle, we wanted to move to a less industrial park, and we like the location that Winner's Triangle offers us. Our building will be used to build, test and repair flight deck, communications and navigation equipment. This is cutting-edge technology that can be found on the latest civil and military aircraft. Our head office will be at Winners Triangle and support other facilities around the country with back office, finance and other administrative tasks.
I'll ask you to move to conclusions.
Okay. Because we understand that deliveries at night have the potential to disturb, we have agreed to adopt a delivery management plan. As we will have continuous security at the site, we will ensure that we enforce the management plan to minimise the potential and disruption. Our operation will be very light and will not and cannot be what I think residents fear, which is a continuous storage and distribution operation with large HGVs. We do occasionally get urgent requirements from our customers to replace a piece of equipment when an aircraft is stranded at an airport, what they call aircraft on the ground.
Yep.
And in that sense, we may get 2 or 3 requests per month, and we need to respond those on a pretty much 24/7 basis.
Thank you.
Very light transport, vans, taxis, more often than not.
Thank you.
Okay, so I hope you approve our application. Thank you.
Before we go on to speakers, I just want to get clarity on a couple of things. We've just heard from the applicant that they accept the delivery management plan, but I understood their agent said that they dispute a couple of conditions in it. So which is it? Do you accept it or as it is, or do you dispute it? I need some clarity on that, please.
We accept the original recommendation, which is to replace condition 12 with the delivery management plan. As I understand it in the update report, there's some suggested alternative or potential conditions that could be attached should you wish to do so. We're not supportive of those.
Right. Okay. So I'll just ask you to comment on those before we come on to the ward members who wish to speak.
Certainly, Chairman, just to clarify, originally the proposal on the in the agenda and the report did not include conditions restricting the occupation of the building to this particular company, and there were no real restrictions upon the noise related activities. We had recommended originally on the update sheet that additional conditions be placed upon there to address any concerns, and particular concerns raised by local residents about the activities on the site and the extent of activity during the evening, which would potentially result in noise issues. I think that, just to clarify, the agent saw those draft conditions on the update and then responded with a letter that is included now to the update sheet, saying that they weren't happy with those conditions and they didn't feel that they met the tests, they weren't necessary, and consequently we removed those conditions from the update. So what is before you tonight is what was originally on the agenda, the report that you have seen. And we, as officers, because the agent has said that they won't accept those conditions, we have removed those from the recommendation.
Okay, but in my experience, it's not normal practice that we simply remove conditions because an applicant says they won't accept it. It should be us agreeing they should be removed because they're not appropriate. Can we get? I really want to drill down to this.
Okay, Chairman, you're absolutely right. As officers, we have judged it on the basis that the agent is suggesting that they aren't acceptable to them, and so we've made an assessment of whether or not, without those conditions, and officers feel that based on the technical information, the proposal is acceptable. We've come to the view, based on that technical evidence and the advice of the Environmental Health Officer, that the proposal should be recommended for approval with those conditions not placed on the decision notice. Members may, however, feel differently to that.
Fine, thank you, Claire. Right, Prue, you're registered to speak as ward member. We have 2 ward members speaking.
Disconcerting. to have the light on. Yeah. Thank you. Very unfortunately, things got off on the wrong foot on this application, which has led to a lot of mistrust into what's going to happen. And I did feel that it was important to make this decision on the committee openly in front of people to try and address some of that mistrust. The reason residents are so alarmed is actually staring in the face at the top of the first page of the report, where it says this is an application to vary a planning condition to allow the movement of goods 24 hours per day, every day. And residents quite naturally read that as meaning that the applicants want continuous HGV movements at all hours of the day and night, 7 days a week. But what they actually want, as you've heard, is a bit of flexibility on vehicle movements outside office hours, mainly small vans, to deal with urgent problems that can't wait. And I would make a plea to officers in future to think about what they put on planning applications to try and avoid such alarm in the future. And residents are now naturally somewhat suspicious of everything about this. And it would be quite easy to sit here and thump the table and demand you refuse it. But it wouldn't be any help, because with the evidence that's in front of you, and as I think you've heard from officers, I don't believe you are in a position to refuse it. However, I absolutely acknowledge residents' concerns, particularly those who are overlooking the site from Williamson Close. Because if there do turn out to be noise problems, we will need some controls, we will need a better barrier. But what is being recommended now is about as far as it's possible to go without inviting an appeal. So really, to summarise, this is not to be a depot like Parcel Force was, it is mainly offices. I know people are a bit cynical about that. I'm very grateful to Rockwell for coming, Rockwell Collins, I should call them correctly, coming to and being somewhat more amenable than their planning agents and sounding like they actually were interested in not upsetting residents. So I hope that if there is a problem, I will be able to work with them to overcome it. They're not looking forward to large numbers of vehicle movements, it will be the exception. But you've got a noise report and an environmental health report that says that what's suggested is enough, and you're not in a position where you can overrule those experts without some other evidence to the contrary. So I don't think you can do anything but go along with the expert advice you've got. What concerns me is what we do if those experts turn out not to be actually right. So anything that you can do at this committee to try and exert some control if there are problems in the future will be very gratefully received. Thank you.
Thank you, Prue. And Philip Holdsworth, a fellow ward member, do you wish to speak? Philip?
First of all, Chair, I'd like to welcome Rockwell Collins to Winish. It's a great sort of thing for them that want, and I hope that we can provide them with the staff in Winish working, well-educated people for the expansion of their employees. I spoke to the chairman of Winish Parish Council this afternoon because to have an explanation as to why they approved this application back in November and changed their mind in, was it April or May. His view was that they were not appraised, they didn't have enough information about this application, which is why they said they refused it later on this year. They have not been appraised with additional information. They'll offer this before you now. In fact, we haven't got that this afternoon, so I emailed it to him this afternoon, and I spoke with him again this afternoon. And it's very clear, reading all the comments from the residents, which I'm sure you've all read, they had a misapprehension about what this site was about. And they obviously assumed that it was some sort of logistics basis, similar to the post office or similar to DHL or something of that nature, with HGVs roaring through the night and causing aggravation and disturbance. And it clearly isn't. And I'm quite sure that once everybody is fully appraised of what this operation is about, they will have no real objection to it. And you're all familiar, well, I'm certainly familiar with Rockwell Collins' product, and as a pilot, it's some of the best in the world, and we are very happy to have them in Winish.
Thank you very much. Right, members, we've got a couple of points here that, again, we'll try and summarise some of the information that we've heard before I invite you to contribute as well. Firstly, we heard from Mr. Bungay, representing local residents, that the acoustic fence is in the wrong position. But I think we've heard from the applicant that the acoustic fence is not installed yet. So I think we have to bear that in mind. We were also told that it was the wrong spec. Obviously it's not installed yet. I'm not sure we can comment on whether the specification is right or wrong. Comments were made that signage would be better than a security guard. I personally disagree with that, because if somebody tells me not to do something or to do something, I take more notice of it than if I see a sign that says no parking. Whereas a policeman says you shouldn't park there, sir, I take a lot more notice of that. So I'm not sure I agree that putting more signs up, particularly since you're concerned about nighttime use, would necessarily be effective. Now, clearly, this is not something that the residents wish to welcome to Winnersh, but we have to look at the practicalities of it. We've got some very clear evidence here, and my concern is that if we were to go against the officer's recommendation and not approve this, clearly Rockwell Collins will be advised by the planning agents to go to appeal. And my bigger concern is, I believe they would win personally at appeal, because we have factual evidence produced by professional environmental health officers and noise specialists, versus, as is so often the case in these situations, with evidence of residents who aren't necessarily specialists in matters relating to acoustics. The net result of that can be we end up with a planning inspector who decides to give the applicant what they want and sees no need to have something that I think adds significant value, which is the delivery management plan. So you end up with what you didn't want, with far less controls and conditions over it. So against that background, members, welcome your comments. But first I need to go to Rochelle, because Rochelle, of course, is also a member for Winnersh, and it's customary that if we're discussing an application, you would speak first. So Rochelle, straight to you.
Thank you. I'd like to say that the fence be the UCAS approved fence. Is that okay with the applicant and okay with the residents? So it would be the proper fence.
That's all I think.
Okay.
Let's clarify that the fence sits behind the fence already, so it's
okay.
So
but it will be an approved. I'd like to have a condition that it's an approved fence. Your UCAS approved wherever the.
I think that's detailed in the conditions. We have that in the conditions already.
Yes. Also, I'd like to ask that they turn off their alarms rather than white noise alarms between 11 and 7. That's a reasonable request as well. Just, you said you wanted signs and you wanted guard as well, but I'd like to see them turning off the alarms completely, because that was something that they have done in other places, and I'd like to see that so it won't disturb the residents. Shouldn't be too much of a problem just between 11 and 7.
I think, Rochelle, the problem with that is health and safety issue.
Yes, but white noise, again, the white noise can be loud enough that it could disturb the residents' sleep. Saying that you have to set it to a certain level is health and safety. Most people, before those things, actually did get out of the way of things that are backing up. Usually you don't stand there. It's kind of a little, that is Darwinism at work. If you stand in front of a car that's truck that's backing up, you're probably going to eliminate yourself in species, but that's beside the point. The last case is that the teenager's window is apparently visible. Now, what I'd like to see is that when the fence is built, that the borough sends out somebody to check to see if it's high enough, and if it isn't, that Rockwell will be willing to increase the height just a little bit to make sure it will be adequate, so it will block the window as well. And some checks on the sound to make sure the sound is actually the levels that we think it is after they actually are built and in operation. In other words, the estimates are this, but we don't know what it's actually going to be. And it would sound, the environmental health people have
we have conditions in the report to address that.
Okay.
We can't change things. If we give permission, we can't then go back and start changing things. We're being advised by the environmental health officer and the acoustics people that the proposed solution, which is not yet in situ, will address this.
Yes.
Okay.
I would like them to actually check it afterwards while it's actually in operation to make sure he's complying with the rules that they've agreed to. Because I'm sure Rockwell would want to keep the
Environmental health.
yes, environmental health.
Yeah. So that would not be a planning matter, that would be an environmental health matter.
Yes, but I would like to at least ask Rockwell to agree to that it's okay with them for that.
No, we're not getting not indicating a response to that, a positive response to that. Okay, was there any other points you wish to make? Okay, all right. John, next.
Thank you, Simon. I think it is disappointing that the agent won't restrict it to Rockwell. But at the end of the day, this delivery management plan that's been agreed by Rockwell, is it possible this would be transferred if we approve this to a new tenant? If, for instance, Rockwell decide to move out and Parcel Force move back in, could we insist that the same development delivery management plan is in place?
Well, John, the issue is, well, we could, as a planning committee, we could wish to apply any conditions we wish to. One of those could well be that we could apply conditions saying that we make this personal to Rockwell Collins. So this opportunity to operate 24/7 would only apply to Rockwell Collins, not to another tenant. Now, I suspect the landlord wouldn't like that and would probably wish to challenge that, but it's something that we can be perfectly free to do if we wish, and it will be tested on appeal.
Can I
just let Claire come in on this one?
Sorry.
Thank you, Chairman. Just a bit of advice. At the moment, what's before you is that there are limited conditions in terms of compliance with the information supporting the application about the numbers of vehicle movements, about the types of vehicle movements and so on. The applicant has supported the application with that information, but there's no condition ensuring that that's actually carried out in accordance with those details, because that was a condition that officers had recommended and the applicant's agent had actually contended. I would suggest, actually, if members wish to restrict the use out in those hours in the evening for 24 hours to the information that has been submitted, that they do so by conditioning the additional hours of operation are carried out in accordance with the delivery management plan submitted. I would not recommend that they go with a personal permission, the reason being that the government guidance on that is saying that we shouldn't do so because company directors change, shareholders change and so on, so it becomes quite difficult to enforce. So realistically, probably the most sensible way forward is to put a condition on saying that it should be in accordance with the information submitted. As I say, it's up to members. The agent has indicated that they're not happy with that, and the consequence of that is that there could be 24 hours a day vehicle movements with no controls on it.
Okay.
Can I just clarify? I don't think it is reasonable for this delivery management plan to be specific to Rockwell Collins. But I do think it's reasonable that it applies to anybody who moves into this building. That's what I'm trying to say. And I'm asking whether we have the power or have the right to say that the same management plan will be enforced on whatever tenant moves into that building.
Okay, but let's get clarity on that. Is the delivery management plan specific to Rockwell Collins, or is it to the building or the prevailing occupant of the building? Can we get some clarity on that?
The delivery management plan does actually refer to the company because it's the way that they operate, so it has almost a personal link, but it just, I think we could word a condition.
Could we add the word all successors?
Or we could add a condition. The wording of the conditions could say something along the lines of it should be carried out in broad accordance with the information submitted to support the application about the way that the operations will be undertaken during certain hours.
Mary.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say, exactly the same. It's what it sounds as if you want is a condition which will follow successors in title.
Yeah.
That's the cleanest way of doing it, to get rid of the mischief caused, whatever it is, as a result of the travel plans. Just another way of doing it.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. we'll look at that then. Bob, did you want to say any more, John?
No, that's
Bob.
Yeah, I mentioned earlier I used to work for Rockwell, but I have to say that was in the systems side. I was a program manager for them. But I am an avionics engineer from the Royal Air Force, so I do know what actually is likely to come into the building. And if it comes on an HGV, it'd probably be every aircraft at Heathrow coming in. A couple flight comes or a flight data recorder or something like that. So I think the what I want to say is that the HGV fear is going to be very rare. And I think you're likely to have more noise from an aircraft going over every day than you will for disruption being caused by the HGVs.
Chris?
Well, it may well be true that the HGVs are going to be rare, but it is not conditioned in here, and it may not apply to another company which took over the building. The assessment report is based on the assumption that there won't be more than one HGV movement in any 5-minute period. Should that not be included in the delivery management plan? Otherwise, the assessment is not valid. I'm going to just ask a question about the point 2. Other agencies will be instructed when delivering during night-time hours, etc., etc. If they instruct somebody to do something and they don't do it, can we still have an enforcement action against the applicant, because it won't actually be the applicant who is not complying? They've actually done what you asked them to do, which is to instruct somebody, but the person they instructed didn't do it.
It's their responsibility to enforce
Sorry,
that.
good one.
It's their responsibility. The condition goes to the land, it's their responsibility, it's the owner's or occupier's responsibility to ensure that the conditions are complied with. I think that I'm just looking at options here for members. I think what I'm hearing is that there is a concern, not by this business per se, but that there is a potential for an unrestricted extension in the hours to be if the building was to be occupied by another user, that there will be an unrestricted delivery use. So I think that the only caution I would say that there are mechanisms we can control that through condition. We can do it one or two ways. We can either condition it in accordance with the information submitted to us, or we can put a condition on there asking that a delivery management plan be submitted to us for approval, and that would be able to be looked at in conjunction with the chair and vice chair to make sure that it does address all of the concerns. So you can do it one way or another. However, I would just like to say that it has been made clear by the agent that they do not feel that this is acceptable, they don't feel it's necessary, and they may well challenge it through the appeal process because they're entitled to do that.
Yeah, but the applicant and the agent don't live there, do they? The residents live there. We have other sites in the borough, Asda being a classic example, where we've had long-running issues about delivery noise. So it's a matter of some concern. Okay, now Claire, you've offered us or suggested 2 solutions to try and... let me just finish this. You've suggested 2 suggestions, 2 different ways of trying to add a little bit of force to members' concerns on this. While we let John speak, would you just give your thoughts as to which of those would be the best way forward, or even both? John.
I want to clarify. We have an environment, we had an agent, a consultant who's looked at the noise level, and they've approved that it's going to be acceptable. But reading it, it does appear to be related to the management plan, because they talk about white noise reversing. So if you had somebody who tipped up here with a whole lot of trucks that didn't use white noise reversing, this environment study would be irrelevant.
But we need to get some guidance and clarity on this. So just bear with us a moment, please. Right, so members, Claire's had a look at this and discussed it with the case officer, who's very familiar with it. You have a recommendation or a changed suggestion to the recommendation.
Thank you, Chairman. Just to refer members, we did actually provide you with a copy of the management plan. It's actually in the agenda. I think it is. Yeah, it's thank you. What you'll see from that is it is pretty broad brush. It does talk about things like the radios being switched off, vehicles, people ask what to whistle or shout. It is very generic in that sense. But I think that obviously that is going to be reasonably effective. However, to my mind, the main information that's been submitted as part of this application relates to types of vehicle movements and the number of vehicle movements. And that is not included in this delivery management plan. It's submitted with the application, but it's not actually in the delivery management plan. So consequently, what I would recommend to members is that they could, having listened to your concerns, a condition is placed upon this permission, if you're minded to approve, to ask for a delivery management plan and supporting information to be submitted to the council for approval in writing that then therefore be complied with in the future, and it will be applicable to any successors in title.
Okay. And is that something that would be done under delegated powers, or is that something we should come back to?
It will be a discharge of condition, Chairman.
Okay.
So we can do it with you if you want. Otherwise, if you want officers to deal with that condition, so be it.
Okay. All right. Right. Members, so what I'm going to suggest, first, does anyone have alternative proposals they wish to put forward? Chris?
I would propose that we defer and bring back the amended condition to the committee.
I will second that.
Okay. All right. In that case, we are going to be asking the planning officers to, if you like, blend the information that is contained on page 101 onwards into the delivery management plan, which gives it more substance and gives us more clarity on that. But I would like to be clear as to whether that, if was then approved, will apply to Rochdale Collins and their successors, not just Rochdale Collins. Can we do that? Because probably, otherwise it's pretty worthless, because Rochdale Collins could, unlikely as I know it is, they could decide to move away after a year, and all our deliberations are wasted anyway. Yeah, please.
Yes, just clarifying further on that. If we, as a result of the delivery management plan, if there are such restrictions upon things like number of vehicles that are come to the site during those evening hours, then that is automatically going to be restricted against any future user anyway.
Yeah, just something Claire said there about the number of vehicles coming in during the hours. It's unlikely to be an HGV, it's more likely to be an estate car bringing... No, we're concerned about its successor to Rochdale Collins. Yeah, Rochdale Collins is moving from their current location to here. In future they may move again, so a new company could come in and have a very intense... I just wanted to make sure that it didn't restrict the operation of Rochdale Collins, because you've got an aircraft on the ground at an airport or at a military base, you need that thing fixed then.
I think what I'm hearing from members, just to clarify, what I'm hearing from members is that they are happy with the level of activity and supporting information put forward as part of this application by this particular company. So, but what they're concerned about is the future intensification and continuous movement throughout the nighttime hours of any future occupier. So they're wanting to restrict this by not to the company, because the advice is we shouldn't do that, but to the conditions that the company has put forward about the way it operates. And we can hopefully work with the company and the agent to come up with something, a delivery management plan which enables that to happen and is flexible enough for future occupiers, but not too flexible that it allows 24/7 continuous movements.
Okay. Right, members, so we have that as a proposal to defer with the intention of coming back with something that, as I say, puts more teeth into the DMP, delivery management plan, using information that has already been provided by the applicant. And it is my understanding that those obligations will carry forward. Okay. So that's right, Chris.
Do those actions actually require a deferral? Is it not possible that these conditions could be drawn up and agreed between yourself?
We've already had a proposal, well, we already did the test, because we've had a valid proposal from Chris Barry, which is seconded by the board member Michelle, that it should come back to a future committee. The alternative, as Chris suggests, is that it could be delegated to the head of development management and myself to agree that outside the meeting, entirely within your power. So we have a valid proposal put forward that it should come back to a future committee. To all those wishing to support that, please indicate. Okay, so it's going back to a future committee. Okay. Thank you very much, everybody. So there's no decision made. Anything further? Members, we can now move on to the last application on tonight's agenda, which is a Wokingham housing application, which, as you know, is before us because Wokingham Housing is a wholly owned company where the sole shareholder is Wokingham Borough Council. We attended a site visit last Friday and saw this small garage block, and the proposal is to put two bedroom flats on there, and we saw that with Chris Lancaster, who's going to whisk us through that now.
Thank you, Chairman. Actually, you've reduced my speaking a little bit because I was going to introduce it in that way, but I'll go straight to the point. The garages have been vacant for 5 to 6 years and they're in a derelict condition. That's the site just off the London Road, opposite St Crispin's School. Sorry about the quality of the aerial photograph, but you can picture the site at the moment. There is a vehicle shown on there, but it is a historical picture. And again, I apologise for this because, as members will know from the site visit, at the moment the site's covered in contractors' vehicles because their kitchen's being refurbished on the estate. So it actually is very difficult to actually see the garages. So that's what it would have looked like before the contractors appeared a few months ago. And that's taken from a slightly different angle. The property to the left-hand side there is number 13 Barrett Close. The one to the right is number 11. As you see, the problem to take photographs at the moment is the presence of some large containers. That's number 13 Barrett present. And then again, it's number 13. The garages are just there on the right-hand side. And the property in the rear there is number 11. Again, we can see the problem with those containers. And that is the property number 11, just taken from down this side access. Just very quickly to show where the photographs were taken again, if you want to refer to them later. It's a 2-storey development of 2 flats. There's a communal amenity space, and the top flat has a small balcony which faces out across Barrett Crescent. It's quite an unusual shape development. You see, it's like an arrowhead. But, it fits on the site quite well. It makes very good use of the land. Ground floor, first floor, pretty much similar. The difference is the first floor does have a balcony. And an illustrative street scene of the property.
Yeah.
There have been objections, loss of privacy, loss of light, noise and smells. All those matters are dealt with in your main report. Members' update, nothing really much to report. Councillor Singleton raised the question of the displacement, potential displacement of on-street parking as a result of this development. As you see from your update, I took a couple of photographs today which actually show the yellow lines to the front of the site. They go either side of the existing access. The new access will be, the new access will be slightly further north of the existing, so it will take out the double yellow lines, but as members will appreciate, those themselves been restrictions on street parking. So the recommendation is, as per your report, to approve.
Well, we have somebody from Woking Housing, but I assume you don't want to speak?
No, I'm quite happy with the report, thank you.
Okay, all right, okay. Members, any of you have any concerns about this? Malcolm?
No,
you're more member. My apologies, yes, of course you are, yes.
No, I have no objection to the thing. It was a rather untidy, sort of strange-shaped site, and it looks much better now with the proposed houses, even though today it's sort of workplace. So I'm happy because it's a much smarter place. One query though is that the parking spaces, the 4 parking spaces, which are sufficient, there's 4 just for the 2 flats, they lead straight in off the road, and there is a tendency, I think, with a lot of those, that it looks a bit like a sort of a lay-by where the cars can park straight on. If you look at the way it's drawn, there's 4 spaces pointing in. Yeah. People park in the first opportunity they find that looks anything like a lay-by or a parking area. I just wondered if there's an opportunity to either angle those 4 to each side maybe, so that you could put some sort of fence. I notice people park on the first space they find.
Yeah, I think Malcolm, as we saw at the side of it, it's a residential street. It's fairly normal, the driveway of houses is at 90 degrees to the road.
If it's a driveway, yeah.
I tend not to get people parking in my driveway. If they do, they only do it once.
You don't live next to the school.
So I don't think, it's right against the building as well.
It doesn't look to me like a driveway because it's all really flat.
Yeah, but I mean, I think to some extent that's less an issue for the committee and more for Woking Housing in terms of their management of the site to ensure there's signage that says parking for residents only.
Yeah. Or you angle it so that people don't. But that's the only concern I have. The rest of it I have absolutely no problem with. But I've lived in this area for many years, and I know that people park on any available space they find. If it's not actually got a barrier or a fence or something along it, they go there. And anything to deter that, whether it's angled or put sideways with a picket fence or something, whatever it is, so that it doesn't look like it's an open space.
But as I said at the beginning, our role tonight is to consider and potentially approve what's in front of us, not to start redesigning the scheme. So I'm not going to...
Well, okay, it's a comment about the site, whether it's validity.
And we have a representative from Woking Housing here who I'm sure will take that on board and be aware of the fact that the residents of Norris Ward will likely to park.
I have no objections on this.
Okay. Any other members, John? And Chris after that.
I'm just debating in my mind, and maybe Mary would like to explain to me what she thinks. I'm technically, as the executive member for Tenant Services, the commissioner of this development. Do I have to declare an interest?
Well, you've probably declared it now, John.
I think, John, then for in the interest of probity, I might suggest that you simply abstain on this.
Yeah,
the decision is not yours; it's taken out of your hands at this time. Okay, that's fine. All right, Chris.
Thank you, Simon. Appreciate that Chris Angus has been helpful for providing communication during the day on this. But I'm still a bit exercised about parking because I think I'm not sure why we're comparing the current situation where all that parking space is being taken up by some kitchen unit work. And really, what we're looking at, I would think, is actually the loss of 14 parking spaces. Now, I think that when we went there on the site visit, it was very clear that the parking was very difficult. And I think that if you were to go back maybe a year ago, I would suggest that that problem was not there, because in fact those cars would not have been parking in the road, they'd have been parking in front of the garages. So I'm a bit concerned that we're looking at this, not the 4 spaces in front of the new building, but actually that we should be looking at a net loss of 10 spaces. It does concern me.
Okay, Chris E, I'd like you to comment on that.
Yeah. I don't disagree with your comment. There's a couple of areas within the borough where I think we've been talking of other areas that they're looking at obviously converting existing garages or have taken down the garages that have become parking. In the instance of this one, there has been some evidence obviously given to the highway officer that's looking at it. The garage, I mean, first off, the garages are in a bad condition, and the garages themselves haven't been used for many years. They're also of the older size where you couldn't really get a proper car in there and get out of the car adequately nowadays anyway. And they haven't been used. We do normally ask for a parking survey, but this area, from the evidence they provided, hasn't been used for some time, and obviously has been supported by the fact that they're now being used as an area for obviously redeveloping the units there. But in terms of traffic management, especially traffic management, there haven't been any complaints come in as a result of this area being cordoned off for the kitchens to be regenerated. So there hasn't been an increase in demand for parking in the area or complaints that have come in. So we've kind of taken that into account and obviously deemed that obviously this is an improvement in the area. There are yellow lines in the area as well, which means that vehicles don't already park on the road in that section. And I think that's kind of where we came to the conclusion. But I understand the point you've made, and we have expressed that to other schemes that have come forward, and we have carried that through.
I appreciate we've got to judge what's in front of us, but my question is there any alternative? Would it be a question of putting forward an alternative motion that we should actually look at making additional provision for parking, maybe with laybys instead of the green verges, that sort of thing?
Right, that's somewhat beyond the site though, isn't it? I think that's looking at an overall existing heavy demand for parking in the centre of Wokingham, rather than specifically to this site. I mean, we've got to look at this against the background of the highways in their formal consultants raised no objections subject to conditions 11, 12 and 13. So I mean, I take your point that you don't think it's adequate, but I'm really looking to you to put forward an alternative proposal if you think that's the case.
Perhaps Chairman, I can interject as well, because I'm actually dealing with a number of applications by the Housing Limited, nearly all garage courts, and the 3 others I was dealing with, yes, we asked for a parking survey because they were in existing use. The distinction here is they're not. They've been vacant, derelict for 5 to 6 years now, so it does make a difference. In all the other ones, there were objections by residents. One of them actually showed parking in their design access taking place. So we do see the distinction in this case that there is not a loss of car parking because it doesn't actually exist as car parking. The tenants vacated some time ago. And just taking Councillor Richards' point up as well, I mean, when we deal with this, the materials will be different on site than the road site, so there will be a distinction in the way it looks as well. Thank you.
Okay. So Chris, did you want to make an alternative proposal?
I'm not quite sure how to put an alternative proposal forward there, because I take your point in terms of it has to be local in terms of what's done. I suppose really what would influence me most there is the fact that the residents haven't complained. But I'd just be a little bit exercised, because they won't complain with it as it is at the moment because they can't use the space. But my question was not related to the garages, which I agree could not be used. My question related to the space in front of the garages, which has been taken away in recent months. And I just wonder whether I would actually, before putting forward that proposal, I just wonder whether Malcolm, as ward member, would be able to provide us with better information on that.
Well, the point you make is valid. The garages weren't in use, but it was a big open space. There were vehicles there every single night that didn't park on the road. There might be anyone's car, anyone's van, an old taxi. It was always vehicles on there. and those won't have anywhere to go now.
And let's be clear, this was never designated as public parking space.
But it was used as such.
Custom may have been, but at any time,
It's not public
the
parking.
council could have just closed it
It's
off.
been in the ownership of the council.
Yes, so at any time the council could have simply blocked it off, as they have done at the moment for an alternative use.
Potentially, yeah. I mean, there's kind of, I don't know the history of the site that was used before, what those garages were provided for the adjacent properties or not. But it all comes down to Wickham Housing Limited, or as we do now with the affordable housing, they manage their stock, and obviously unallocated or allocated. And I think bear in mind that this was pre all of our current standards where we are.
Yep.
The evidence that was obviously provided to the highway officer that's obviously prepared and fed into Chris in respect to the report has come to the conclusion that he's happy and satisfactory that there is adequate parking.
He would be, because there's 2 two-bedroom flats and 4 spaces, that's 2 per flat. So of course he's going to be...
No, he has looked at the potential loss as well, and that's the evidence that's provided. And I can assure you that he, as a high officer, hasn't made the same conclusion on another council site.
I don't know if he lives near there, and what I'm saying, it is used a great deal. That will not be there. Now, I'm not going to complain about that, I mean, it's just a fact of life when things are built. But because of its layout, I do know that people take any opportunity anywhere. Residents call me up and say people are parking on flat spaces in front of their house, even though it's technically their property. It looks like an open space and they park on it. So anything to make it less like a lay-by space.
I think obviously
by what it would be otherwise.
I think maybe just slightly deferring away, but for you, it's worth you advising your constituents to raise up traffic management in terms of car parking, because through the applications we do consult with them as well, and they haven't got any kind of reported issues with parking in the area, which has drawn us to the conclusion that it's acceptable in the area.
Okay. So Chris, did you want to?
I think on balance, one's got the provision of additional housing that's sorely needed,
yep.
And against that would be my perception of the parking problem. But I think what actually carries greater weight is what the residents feel about it. And frankly, if they haven't complained about it, I think I'd probably not wish to put forward an alternative. Thank you, Simon.
Okay, all right. Just to make sure that the only 2 comments from neighbours were concerned about overlooking, not anything to do with parking. So, and that's addressed by both the distances and the obscure ways. Michelle.
Well, I definitely applaud the idea of adding to our housing stock because of a very large waiting list we have. I do understand what Chris is saying about the parking, but honestly, in the area, if it was a real problem, people would be complaining about it, first of all. And second of all, if people want to park on derelict places, they're perfectly welcome to, as long as nobody enforces it. But we can't actually say, because you park there, we're going to keep it as a parking lot for the rest of the life. For a car park, that's just not right. It's not planning, I don't think.
Okay, all right, well, we only have this proposal in front of us then, so I see no one else wishing to indicate they wish to speak. So we have planning application F 2015-0060 for the erection of 2 two-bedroom flats on an existing single-storey garage block. Members wishing to support that, could they please indicate? 7-4 and John Carter is abstaining for previously stated reasons. Okay. So that is approved, and the last item has already been decided. So those are the substantive items on the agenda. That just leaves us to comment on the preemptive site visits that we have. They will be on Friday.